So, where are we really? You know, when you're looking to vote, what are you really voting for? The Democrats have gone so far to the left, and the left is now in control of Canada and much of the West. And the left, unfortunately, doesn't realize they're being used. They're being used. And when they figure this out, there's going to be hell to pay for those who are using them. And right now, it is the corporate and political power in the West. It's the governments making these public-private partnerships. And they're just using the left as useful idiots. And they have gone out of control. We just showed you that they were going after AOC. You can't. How do you go left of AOC? Well, they found a way. Now, here's Montreal. There's a mob from the left shouting at a Jewish center. Now, listen to this.
Go back home! Settlers, go back home! Settlers, go back home!
Okay, so they're shouting at the Jews to go back home, and they've got Palestinian flags. What? Well, wait a minute. Where should they go? Germany? Russia? Where is their home? That's the whole idea of the Jewish state. They have a home. But why should Palestinians be left in Canada and Jews not? Do Jews just have to stay in Israel? There's no common sense thinking here at all. There's no logical thinking. Well, then you have Michael Moore. He says he knows who the enemy of the Palestinians and the Jews are. Listen.
What is the crime? Because according to my knowledge of history, the enemies of Israel who have been persecuted, the Israelis, the Jewish people of this world have been persecuted for 5,000 years. But for the last 2,000 years, most of the persecution has come from white, European-centric Christians. That's been your enemy. No Palestinian helped to build Auschwitz. No Palestinian stood on the docks of New York City when boatloads of Jewish refugees trying to escape the Holocaust came here to be protected by this country and were turned away at the docks in New York and sent back to Germany to die. No Palestinian did that. No Palestinian ran the Spanish Inquisition.
Democrats.
Your enemy is not the Palestinian people. It is white, Christian, European people who have been slaughtering Jews for the last 2,000 years.
Okay, stop. First of all, we know history. We know history, but we also know that the Ottoman Empire and the Muslims have been against the Jews as well forever.
And also in a lot more recent history, too. It's not just, you don't need to go back thousands of years to find
it's
Arab
still
nations
going on in the
invading.
ancient ways.
Yeah.
Still going on.
I think it's well documented at this point that there have been some really bad stretches of white European anger versus Jews. That's been pretty well covered. And by the way,
and could happen again.
Could happen again at any point. As no one is dismissing it. But I don't know, Jews have lots of people who don't like them for whatever reason. They continually have to deal with unfair persecution, and it doesn't matter which group you're talking about. It's so fascinating how they keep acting like it's a genocide, right? Like that's not how genocides look. Genocides do not look like 3,000 people dying, if that's even accurate.
And I just also want to point out that he's saying that it's the white people that are causing this genocide. Well, now wait a minute. Hang on just a second. The Jews are going after Hamas, and so there are a lot of people dying, just like there always is in wars. There are a lot of people dying, and it's horrible. It is horrible.
Yeah.
However,
war is awful. It's
all
hell,
that has to happen is for one of the Arab states to open up their borders and take them in. He was saying there was no Palestinian that was standing on the docks, when the SS St. Louis came in and wanted. No, you're right. it was a Democrat. It was FDR that did that. However, this time, as the Palestinians are trying to get out, Egypt has closed their borders. So, I mean, who's on the dock now?
Big walls there, Glenn. Tall walls.
Big, tall
all
walls.
Sorts of reasons you can't get through them.
Okay, so
these borders are borders there.
So there's another cut that I want to play. Some more, threats to democracy. Here is the author of a new book called White Rural Rage on Morning Joe, MSNBC.
Their new book, out tomorrow, is entitled White Rural Rage, the threat to American democracy.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this, so we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
Unbelievable. So this is the narrative, and I don't think it's disconnected, just like Cookie Monster says Cookie's getting smaller, and then the White House coming out and saying Cookie Monster is right, and we've got to do something about it. This is the same coordination. They are painting half of the country as an enemy. In fact, here's Whoopi Goldberg.
Well, the Supreme Court won't hear oral arguments until the end of April. Now, let's look at a scenario where the Supreme Court says, yes, he has all those rights. He is immune from everything. Yeah. You know what Joe Biden could do since he is presently president? What? Whoa. He could throw every Republican in jail. Yeah. I mean, he could.
That's one of the most fascinating clips of all time, and the radio does not do it justice. Because this is not her just coming up with something off of the top of her head. This is prepared on a card for her. Mm-hmm. She has prepared to say that she believes the president of the United States can arrest every Republican. Mm-hmm. Someone on her crew was like, "Oh, we fact-checked that one, mm-hmm. and that's true. That's how this country works." And so, what a dolt!
I just want to point out that we have people shouting at Jews, "Go home." We have Michael Moore saying the enemy is not Palestinians, but it's white Christians. We have two authors pushing a narrative that's coming from the White House. White rural voters are a threat to democracy. We have Whoopi Goldberg saying that you could just throw Republicans in jail, which does not sound very democratic to me. The president could just throw all the Republicans in jail. That's an interesting constitutional point. And then CNN wonders why. Cut 5.
These latest poll numbers are not necessarily showing a lot of good news for the current president.
No, it's showing a similar story that we've been seeing over the course of the last year. He is losing ground with some key constituencies. Take a look on the screen here. You can see the New York Times poll there on the left compared to the 2020 exit polls. Now, one is a poll and one is voters coming out of the voting booth telling us what they did. But nonetheless, those under 30, Biden has a 12-point advantage in this poll. Well, it was twice that in the 2020 election. Among female voters, Biden is tied with Trump in this New York Times poll this weekend. He had a 15-point advantage. You see with black voters, he's got a 43-point advantage. That's substantial, except in the 2020 election, it was a 75-point advantage. And then if you look at non-white voters without a college degree, you see he's got a 6-point advantage over Trump, but that was a 46-point advantage in 2020.
Now, between what's happening in the world, what's happening at the grocery store, what's happening with your job, and what the left is telling you, that we should put people in jail just because of the way they think, or that half the country should be arrested or they are domestic terrorists. Gee, I wonder what could be making those poll numbers go down.